Hello and welcome, I'm Arumba. Thank you for joining me. Let's do another Arumba's Assay. This time we're going to do a nation called Cebu, going for the Philippine Tiger achievement. The save was submitted by a person named Robin. Say that they are going for the Philippine Tiger achievement, which, if you're unfamiliar with this, I was. I have a hard time actually seeing the achievements in-game because of the whole loading someone else's save game thing. But the achievement looks like this. Basically, as Cebu, take over this landish, right? Like, take over most of the coastline around the Philippines, Malacca, Mulaccas, Bengal. Looks like not Deccan, but Coromandel. So far we're about here, and the concerns that the submitter has are he's got to fight Ming in order to fight and take some of the land from upper Ayutthaya area, right around in here. Khmer is a tributary underneath Ming, and he is having a hard time fighting against Ming and thinks that maybe there's not enough time. I can tell you this 100% for sure, there's definitely enough time. We have 80 years left in the game. That is so much time. This late in the game with the tech that we have and the there's just so much time. People don't realize how much can be done in the last 20, 30 years of the game, let alone the last 80. So, he says that he took exploration to colonize the Spice Islands for money and then conquered the Isles, tried to stop the Europeans, and threatened to ward his way through colonizing Mamluks, who are now down to just one province. Couldn't be a tributary because Ming has hated his guts from the beginning. He didn't understand why. The stalemate now comes with Ming. I tried to fight a war with Khmer, and since everyone is a tributary, I need to fight my way through Ming, but they just drown me in mercs, and I can't fight the war with the min-maxing it would need. I let Malacca live as they are taking a province from Venice. They are taking a province from Venice and wanted to kill them afterwards. Okay, so Malacca's alive because apparently Malacca took a province from Venice? Okay. They are the defender, though, against Venice in the Venetian-Malaccan Imperialist War. They are winning their war, and they are hostile to... So they're going to be taking this province. I got it, okay. Well, that's assuming that war actually ends up getting resolved. Yeah, I can be very stubborn. Okay. Already it is 1740. Doesn't know if he can get the achievement or if it's too late. I think with absolutism and imperialism, it can maybe be done. Yes, it can. So, the following questions. Do you think the achievement is still achievable? Yes, definitely. How would you fight the war with Ming and their tributaries? How can I fight the Europeans after they just buy land, which I hate? Is my merc spam okay, or would you rather use drilled armies? Also, general improvements. Where should I put my forts? Is my economy okay? Are my merchants placed okay? Etc. He has every single DLC, and so here we go. Let's do this. All right, let's start off at the top. I have like a little worksheet that I go through now just to make sure I don't miss out on stuff. Let's talk about tech first. One thing I noticed with tech is that we are currently 20 years ahead of time with a 40% Enlightenment institution tech penalty. And I think like the only way that you can actually be 20 years ahead of time is if you take tech like 6 or 7 years ahead of time. That coupled with the institution tech penalty means we must have paid a lot for Diplotech 27 and Miltech 27. I think that in general, I wouldn't recommend this. Even if you can get innovativeness from it, it's just not worth it. We did a worksheet the other day while I was streaming. It was an innovativeness spreadsheet, and the general consensus is that in the early game, if you can take tech early by up to 3 years and get innovativeness, you'll actually earn monarch points over the course of the campaign. That it will save you more than you spend just based on tech and on idea groups alone. And in the mid game, if you can take it about 2 years ahead, and then after that, you should pretty much just ignore it. And you're so late in the game now that definitely, if you took this for innovativeness, I wouldn't recommend that. You'd be better off spending those monarch points on something else, like on development, or possibly running policies, or even just not hiring highest level advisors so that you can end up saving money and invest in the economy elsewhere. That kind of thing. So I would recommend not going 20 years at a time, unless there was a very significant reason. I mean, yes, it's nice that we're a tech ahead of Ming, and maybe that was the argument for it, but I think that's too much, personally. As far as idea groups go, I like every idea group that you have. I think that they're all good choices. Exploration, innovative, defensive, trade, offensive, humanist, they're all solid, good idea groups. One thing I noticed, though, is that you do have both of your colonists now just developing existing colonies. This is kind of it's a new mechanic they added in Dharma, and to be honest, it's trash. It's just, there's no reason to... You should still abandon the idea group. If you're not going to colonize other provinces, which there are still some extras that could be colonized, you should always colonize a potential colony over doing, like, settled development. So we could colonize over here in South Georgia. This is actually within range. Like, we could send a colonist to South Georgia if you wanted to. Yeah, it doesn't really meet the needs of the achievement, but, you know, we could do it, is the point. So I would recommend doing something like that, rather than developing in our own territory. Or just outright abandon the idea group, honestly. Like, that's what people used to do before Dharma, and I still think it's an appropriate thing to do if your needs are already met. The only thing we would lose by canceling it is colonist-related stuff. Tariffs don't apply to us because we have no subjects. Naval force limit is about the only thing that would actually affect us, and we're not at naval force limit. We would lose about 20% of this, so it's not a big deal. We would still be below the naval force limit, which also we could build more ships if we wanted to in the first place. So I would recommend abandoning the idea group personally rather than continuing to colonize. So let's just do that. Now, if you were to replace the idea group, I would look to replace it with either a diplomatic or a military idea group at this stage of the game, because we're 20 years ahead of time on Miltech and Diplotech. So the contenders then would be diplomatic, influence, quality, or quantity. Most of the concerns you have about Ming, I think, are actually kind of unfounded. Like, if you look at our economy versus Ming, we have about the same income. So yeah, Ming has a lot of mercs, but if he can afford them, we can afford them. The only thing we're missing out on is the available force limit to field them. So quantity would be a very good option here, just to bloat our force limit so that we can field the same number of merc regiments that he is. Again, if he can afford it, we can afford it. So just throw more men at the problem is one option. Alternatively, if you don't like that, you want to do more of a tactical, like, quality approach, you could go for quality ideas, try to get some infantry combat ability. You could pair that with the modern firearm techniques innovative policy to get an extra 20% for a total of 30% infantry combat ability. That would work very well as well. The only thing I don't really like about quality is the fact that you have 3 ideas that are related to Navy, which are pretty trash. So personally, I'd probably lean towards quantity in this case, just because I feel like having more numbers would help us the most right now. So let's just do that. We'll take quantity. We did just get a few extra Diplo points from canceling the idea group. You get 10% of your Monarch points refunded when you abandon, so we end up getting like 280 points back to abandon a whole idea group. But it's alright. Now we do have a free policy slot available because we just dropped that idea group. Probably pick up the merchant. Even though we're doing a military idea group, I'd still probably consider running an extra policy. Policies are really strong. Right now we have trade efficiency and interest per annum minus 0.25%. We do make a lot of money from trade, so that's probably worth running. We're behind time on admin tech by a little bit. We're actually taking a unbalanced research penalty for that. I'd still consider running the policy here. Even if it's just 1 admin point a month, idea cost and institution spread rate would also help right now, since we've got that problem with the Enlightenment. And then after having that on, we can go ahead and knock out these ideas. So we can get some extra max manpower recovery speed, and then the thing we really care about here is the land force limit plus 50% at the very end. That's going to be very powerful. Also have apparently a core over here that's not done, probably because of the fact that we're behind time at admin tech would be my guess. Or maybe we just didn't have the points for it earlier. Now let's just take the core so we don't have to worry about it. Okay. Age bonuses. Looking at absolutism. My guess is that we just didn't have the ability to obtain it yet because we are a very stable nation. We don't have any rebels to suppress. We don't really have a lot of growth here. Only 46 out of maximum of 100. I don't know. I mean, basically, we need to conquer some land to get some more absolutism. This is the age of revolutions, man. Let's go. Let's go kill stuff. As far as merchant goes, the Canton node is kind of weak, meaning that we could actually protect some of this money. The Canton node has 1100 power in it with 25 ducats roughly. The Hangzhou node also has a lot. It actually has less trade power with even more money. So this is actually where we should be protecting trade, not in Siam. Siam has 20 ducats with 1254 trade power. That does factor in some of the ships that we have protecting there though, so that number will go down. But if you had to choose between 2 equally sized nodes, right? We have 377 trade power from our ships here. Like, you want to pick the node that's bigger, always. So let's go protect in Hangzhou instead, where we will make a lot more money. And also, we're going to split off half of the fleet that's protecting in the Malacca node, because I feel like going for, like, above 80 to 90% is just a little bit overkill. And let's send them over to Hangzhou as well. And then the other ships can stay and protect in Malacca for now. We have no admiral, which we're ahead of time on admin tech, so I would recommend having an admiral. Nice, he has 5 maneuver as well. Cool, good stuff. With that new merchant, let's go ahead and send him somewhere, ideally, where we can influence the direction of trade or increase the outgoing value. So we'll go to here. We'll get a boost on that value. I do have a list of like the merchants that don't really do much for us right now. Unfortunately, the merchants in Mulakas, Australia, and Siam aren't really doing anything other than increasing the outgoing value by a tiny bit. So it's kind of weak. Our position in the world makes it hard to actually steer well. If we did discover more of North America, we could steer from Mexico and maybe try to steal some of the money that the Caribbean's getting. But we don't know where that is, and I just abandoned the exploration idea group. So let's just not worry about that problem. Okay, moving on, we've got Castilian Canada is currently pirating one of our nodes. I don't know if you've noticed this, but in this node we have 65% control. Pirates, Castilian Canada has 89 trade power here. They are the only person that's keeping money here, and we're missing out on a tiny bit of money just because we don't have anybody stopping that from happening. So let's find our actual combat navy, and let's just split off like 10 heavies. And we'll have them go hunt pirates in the Philippines. I choose 10 heavies because that's about naval combat width, about 30. Each heavy is size 3, so 10 heavies is about ideal for combat if we get into a war. Next up in this node, we should just like real quick check to see if there's anyone doing piracy. I don't see anything going on there. I didn't see any others in other locations either. So that was pretty much the only one. Okay. World ports. I'm pretty sure we only have 4 world ports. We've got Pasay, Siak, Palembang. Brunei is 5. And our capital of Cebu is... did I say 5? It's 5. We're 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, nope, I just missed them. I missed the ones down here. Okay, good. Well, we just gained a merchant though because I changed that policy, so we should definitely be upgrading these. Also, even going from just level 1 to level 2 is well worth it, especially like in this Philippine node where we can get more propagated trade power up into Canton. So I would recommend we upgrade these things like right away. And if we were to upgrade another one, this one has 4 nodes that it propagates up into. The Philippines has only 1, so if you're talking about strictly propagating trade power upstream, we're gonna want to upgrade another one of these guys. Let's do like this one to tier 3. There goes a bunch of money, that's alright. Alright, next up. Buildings. We should be using universities to help spread enlightenment and to make dev cheaper. So, one of the things I mentioned with tech is that we took that tech penalty to take the tech really, really early. Instead of doing that, we could be doing more development. And what I would do is start off by going sort by lowest cost, go to that province, which hopefully someday they allow you to just click here and focus on it. But in this location, the development cost is only 21 right now. If we build a university, that'll lower the development cost by 20% of base. Base cost is 50, so it's going to save us a lot. Basically, we can really get this price down. And also, it's going to help to spread the institution, right? If you look at the institution, the reason we don't have the Enlightenment is that it says, have a university, any owned province is the origin of Enlightenment or is on the continent Asia. It can't spread without universities. So we want them for that reason and for the sake of development. So let's build them in at least a few locations. I'm not going to like go nuts with it. What I would usually do, personally, I usually just like having them everywhere because I like doing development. Universities don't even take a building slot. They increase the number of available building slots that you have by 1 while costing 1. So you basically get a free building slot that way. But a much easier way to do it if you're just rolling in money is to just go sort by this and just do that. And then when you're developing, just try to make sure that the provinces that you get have that modifier for development cost due to having a university present already. So, we do want to have some money available for the institution when it does come around, but I would highly invest in universities right now. Alright, advisors I think are great. Love the advisors. We got level 5 advisors across the board. We can easily afford it. It's a good choice, good stuff. Forts, I didn't really look at placement of forts, but just looking at our economy, we can easily support another 60 or so ducats in maintenance. And the general rule of thumb is that you want to take your development divided by 50, In this case, that'd be 29.7. And then round to the nearest upper number, so to go up to 30. We want to have 30 fully maintained current level forts. Each fort costs us 4 ducats base. We have discount from defensive mentality. So 30 forts at 4 ducats each is going to cost like 120 ducats a month. Minus the 10%, you're looking at like 108 ducats. So for 108 ducats, we could have more army tradition. Is that worth it? I think yes. Your mileage may vary, but I love having high tradition because it gives morale of armies, it gives siege ability, it gives better generals, and generals and sieges win wars. So I would recommend upgrading your forts as well. But universities takes a little bit higher priority so we can get the institution. Next, professionalism, army. So either we haven't been doing much drill or you've been placating, slackening standards. I'm not sure. Either one's fine. If you want to use professionalism for a combat advantage, that works very well. It takes a lot of time to build it up, but the siege ability is really, really good. And a fully professionalized army with full drill is roughly 30% stronger than an army that has no drill. If you do the math on like the shock damage received, fire damage received, shock damage dealt, fire damage dealt from a drilled army, that's roughly the trade-off. So just in your head, think of professionalism at max with a fully drilled army is roughly equal to everyone in that army having an extra 30% multiplied to their damage dealt, or their like overall combat efficacy. I would personally start drilling if we're at peace and we're not using the army. Just drill. We have one army with regulars, and then the others are mercs. This is totally fine. Mercs are really, really powerful, especially when you have a good economy to support them. Just be aware that you can't drill mercs. So if you're looking to use professionalism over time to slacken standards and stuff, you do need to have more regulars. So, yeah. Either way is good. Relationships thoughts. We're not using any relations at all. I really don't understand this this part. This is like the only thing that I was like really surprised and kind of went, huh? So, I can tell you must not like vassals much, or subjects in general, because you've never done this mission to acquire subjects. You've never had 2 subjects at the same time the whole campaign. That's interesting to me. Subjects are awesome. You should definitely use subjects. Like, for example, if you just go B, V, D for me, because I have the keyword shortcuts, or just go B for the macro builder, go down to diplomacy, shortcut key is apparently 0 by default, and then go to the influence actions tab, offer vassalization, look at the people who are at the top of this list that are close. If they're within like 15 or -15 or -20, that means you can vassalize them. Pegu, in fact, would just accept outright if we just improved relations with the guy. So improve relations with him for a while, get his opinion up to about 100 or so, and then offer alliance, he'll offer royal marriage, then you offer vassalization. Bam, done. Like, free subject. Why not? Like, why wouldn't we take him? Same thing with the Mamluks. I actually don't really want them. I want to kill them. Warsangali is at -86. That's mostly due to distance between borders. That means that if we were to expand and just have a province over here, he would accept. Like, these are free provinces we could have control of. And the diplomats should also stay active. So let's spy on the Mamluks. Well, actually, we're in the late game. We don't need claims. But here's the thing. Claims can still be situationally useful. Let's say we want to take land off, like, Austria. I don't care who the heck Austria's allied to. They will never land boots on the ground. They will never get to us. But if we declared a imperialism war, we have to take their capital. That's bad. In this case, we can use nationalism to make the CB something here. And then all we have to do is just take our combat navy and we put it on intercept enemy fleets. This mission specifically seeks out and attacks enemy fleets near allied coastlines, focusing on troop transports. That's it. Have a good navy and set them to intercept enemy fleets, occupy the one province that causes the ticking war score, wait a couple years, bam, done. They will never get boots on the ground. It's not going to happen. And even if they did somehow squirrel military access through the entire continent of Asia, just park your army here in defensive terrain and just say, come at me, bro, and you'll be fine. You know, we've got defensive terrain here. We could just sit here and wait. Them occupying this land is not going to do anything. You just consider this like the no man's land and just whatever. But more than likely, they would never even show up, is my point. One thing I would also recommend is that we have 319 naval force limit now after abandoning exploration. You should shoot for your naval force limit in light ships. It will cost a little tiny bit of money, but in times of peace, you can mothball the combat stack, and then the price for being over the naval force limit is basically 0. It's not the same formula as it is for land force limit. So I would recommend building more ships then. Let's just get a few more. I mean, I can see how he had like exactly 100 and exactly 75. He's got like these nice little compositions, but I don't usually do it that way. So, okay. So we should be improving with that guy. And then also just in general, we should have more subjects. Like anyone that we can get subjects with, we should take them. Okay, wars and expansions. Again, I mentioned that concerns about Ming may be unfounded. We have equal income, so if he can field the mercs, we can field the mercs. Last note I had was government reforms. Looking at the government reforms, I think that it's possible players are, not just you, but players in general, may be making, it might be overestimating the power of some of these basic modifiers like general estates. Production efficiency plus 10. If you actually break down what that does, you take your current production income, 158.8.53, divide that by the multiplier of 132%. That's what we're actually making, right? 132% of what we would normally make. That means that our base production income without any multipliers would be 120.1. So when you take plus 10%, you're making an extra 10% of the base production income, which in this case is 12 ducats. So that government reform gives you 12 ducats. 12 out of 534. Which means it's an increase of about 2% income. Is that good enough to justify taking this decision? I don't think so. I think Parliament is hands down in a complete class of its own in the tier 5 category. And unless you are like doing some weird absolutism thing, I see it as like the only choice in tier 5. Parliament is just way better than a flat modifier to income like this. Same basic idea with meritocratic recruitment. Unless you're doing a strategy like with the Mamluks or something, where you can stack advisor cost reduction. If you look at the formula here, every year that goes up, the base cost for advisors increases by 0.5. So with advisor cost minus 60%, we're saving 60% of the total, right? So basically, if we didn't save this, we would be paying 25% more than we are right now, which is only going to be how much? 62 times 0.25 equals 15 ducats. 15 and a half ducats. For 15 and a half ducats, we could have something else. Like, say, rather than taking that, I would probably go for the administrative clergy, for the extra free administrative policy. Would I pay 15 ducats a month if I make 534 for effectively another admin point per month? Yes, I would. Personally, I think that I would much rather run multiple ideas. So again, your mileage may vary and it is personal preference, but I just think that some of these flat modifiers are just not that strong. They are kind of weak. The other ones I have no issue with at all. They all seem great and fine. I might have maybe taken this one early game just because I think that if you're going to go mercs, you don't really care about national manpower as much. Then again, manpower does allow you to go more professional, so it's again, personal preference there. Okay, so yeah, as far as the achievement goes, man, you can definitely do this. There's definitely time for it. A couple other little tiny things. I noticed like the gold mine is currently owned by the burghers, where the burghers reduce they remove the minimum autonomy penalty for production efficiency, but production efficiency doesn't affect gold. So that means that the merchant guilds do affect gold income. If you remove this, watch the gold income, 12.37, goes down slightly, but then if you lower autonomy, it goes up. So gold mines, you don't want to be owned by the burghers. Just something to be aware of. It's again, this didn't make or break your campaign, but I don't know how early in the campaign you got this. You may have been missing out on potentially a sizable amount of money over time just from that one province. We are also in the stage of the game where we could create client states. So even if you just create a one province minor client state, that client state will do a lot more with that one province than you get out of it. They get base income, they get base force limit, they get base max manpower. You can make them into a march, and then they will give you even more force limit. And if you take the right idea set, like influence, then you can actually make your marches very powerful little contributors to the fight. And they're also autonomous, which can be it can be a good thing and a bad thing, right? Sometimes they'll be idiots, and sometimes they'll be really handy. Depends on how well you control their vassal like set focus. I usually leave them on siege focus. That way they typically avoid battles while also occupying small little provinces that I don't want to pay attention to. If they have a strong enough army on their own, they'll go after forts, but they don't try to find fights, which I like, because normally if they try to find fights, they'll lose, and then they lose me war score, and I don't like that. If you are having your own difficulties fighting battles, you can tell them to be focused on attachment, and then just say allow friendly armies to attach, and they'll try to latch onto your armies, and you can kind of lead them around by the nose, which is also kind of nice. But yeah, I would do something like this and then go after it, man. Like, one thing you can also try is, if you don't want to fight Ming, it's not possible with Khmer, but I noticed like with Ava is a tributary under Ming. Ava was at some point, I think, allied with these other people. He's not now, though. He's allied to just Khmer and to Tsang. Tsang is also a tributary. There's a way to pick this apart. You find a tributary that's allied to someone that's not a tributary or not within the Ming thing. And then you declare war on them, and then you co-belligerent the other tributary, and then you can take land from both. And for whatever reason, co-belligerenting an ally of a tributary doesn't call in the overlord. Okay, right? Like, it doesn't make sense, because it's not the same thing as declaring directly on the tributary, if that makes sense. So basically what you'd be looking at is, I would love to find an example. Ryukyu is, are they a tributary? Of course they are. Japan is a tributary. Japan is allied to Ainu. Ainu is a not tributary. There we go. There's an example. So if we declare war on Ainu, and then you co-belligerent Japan, Japan calls in his allies. But even though he's a tributary under Ming, he doesn't call in Ming. So if this were a situation where, like, if Khmer ever allies someone else, then you could go to war with Khmer without having to fight Ming. And just to test and prove that, hopefully I don't, like, make a fool of myself here. We declare war on Ainu, Japan, let some time pass, watch how there's no Ming. No Ming. Ming's never going to join. So if Japan were allied to Khmer, he would call in Khmer because they're allies, but Ming would still not come in. Then you could use all the war score you earn against this guy to just focus on Khmer, if that makes sense. Let's just see how economy looks. We're making 208 ducats a month. Trade income, I don't know if it's changed much. I think that focusing on steering up here is the right call. Hopefully our navy is actually doing what I said. Actually, right this second, looks like they are hiding right now because of the war. But take those things into consideration and let me know how it goes. I'm not going to play this one out because I just feel like, I don't know, it's more about the feedback, I think, these days than it is about playing out the actual campaign myself. So let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. Appreciate you guys' time, and I hope you guys are enjoying the campaign. Hope you guys are enjoying the episodes. I'll see you next time. Aren't you glad this one had sound?